Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nהיה b'dvarei. L'chaim, everybody, l'chaim.
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 Good to vach. We start a new week. It's a full week. Although the other weeks were also full, but they were full, beyond full with holidays. And now we have to take the holidays with us. And in particular, the end of the holiday. We start off Pesach, being redeemed from Egypt, and we end up with Mashiach Suda, the festive meal of Mashiach that we bring to internalize everything about Mashiach by eating matzah, having 4 cups of wine, that we should have the taste of Mashiach. And when we speak about it, so, here's probably the speaking to the choir, shall we say, speaking about with enthusiasm, but not everybody's enthusiastic. Some people are uneasy about it. Others are actually indifferent. I'm sure that doesn't describe anybody here, or maybe does on some level. Maybe some people feel, come on, being so naive, you really think the world's going to change? It's been for the history that we know for thousands of years. It's not a pipe dream. Yet, we may think it at a time, but we know that it is fundamental, foundational to Jewish teachings and belief. So we might be in a quandary at times that we speak about the imminent coming. Now, say that it's an idea, it's a long term, and that might be more comfortable. It might be more what we perceive in the world around us. After all these hundreds and thousands of years, Mashiach hasn't come, and now things are going to be any different. So, what I hope today we will learn and come away with is that Mashiach's not really a future event. Already here. It's in the making. It's not like, the food that you got to go to the store and go buy the flour and buy the oil and then mix it and make some challah or whatever you make. No. It's in your home. It's actually baking in your oven right now. And where we're going to get this idea from this week's double portion. So, today's learning is in honor of Ahuva, her birthday. This is her portion, a double portion. May Hashem grant her Hatzlacha u'bracha, success and blessings and everything, materially and spiritually, and only good things. L'chaim, l'chaim. Mazel tov.
Amen, and thank you.
So why do we have a double portion? Is because we have more Torah portions than we have weeks to celebrate the portion. So we combine them. And this week actually kind of makes sense, the combination, Tazria and Metzorah, because both of them are speaking about the same topic, about this skin disease that also can find itself on clothing and on the walls. That was in the biblical era. In the first portion of Tazria, it speaks about the different forms of ailments. We actually, today, for whoever comes on Chumash or Rashi in the morning, at around 8:30, 8:40 in the morning, get a treat. You get to learn this. So the first part is about the ailment itself, and the second portion, Metzorah, is about the purifying process. And therefore, they fit together, right? They fit together. Now, the name of the first portion is called Tazria, from the word zera, seed, which means to conceive, seed, meaning conception, a woman who conceives a child. And the second portion is called Metzorah, which is about the person who has this skin disease called saras. Now, people translate it as leprosy. It's definitely not a modern day leprosy at all, because modern day leprosy is contagious. This disease is not at all contagious. Well, we'll learn more about it later. And it's a reflection of a spiritual malady. Now, the difficulty that the Rebbe in this week's Sikha brings up is that the names of the Parsha are a reflection of what the Parsha is about. And here we see that the name doesn't correlate with the subject matter. First, let us take the first portion of the ailments of tsaras that is spoken about in the Parsha. And again, the name of the Parsha is Tasria, which means conception and birth of a child. These are the first 8 passages in the Torah portion that it speaks about entirely. Then it goes over to the discussion of tsaras. So, how does childbirth, conception, and childbirth relate at all to the malady and the various forms of this malady of tsaras? All right. Now, if you look at the Parsha, so open up over here, and you would say, well, okay, maybe it's of the first words of the Torah portion, and that's why it's taken the name, but it's not that way at all. So you see, the word Tazria is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The 13th word of the Parsha. You have Isha before that, you have Bnei Israel, you have other words that could be used. So it's a deliberate choice to use the word Tazria for the name of the Parsha. Again, what is the relevance of that name to the content of the Parsha? The content of the Parsha speaks about isolation, separation, the opposite of life. That's the first question. Now let's look at the second Torah portion. It's called Metzorah. Again, that is about the person who has tsaras. So the Midrash says, this will be the law of the Metzorah. This word reads as an abbreviation from Meitzei Shemra, meaning a slander. Our sages of blessed memory say, these afflictions are brought upon us only because of the slander that issues from our mouths. The sacred spirit cries and proclaims, don't allow your mouth to bring sin to your flesh. Don't permit yourself to speak words that will stain your flesh with tsaras lesions and harm your body. So the word Metzorah comes from the word moitze, which means to express. Moitze, Metzorah, that you're bringing out ra, evil. You're extracting evil words. That's what it means. You're saying things that are slanderous or whatever, negative. gossip, whatever it might be. So the irony is that this Torah portion, called Metzorah, doesn't speak about the affliction of the Metzorah. On the contrary, it's speaking about the purification process. The first Torah portion speaks about the affliction. The second one speaks about the purification. As a matter of fact, it very much begins that way. Text number 3, beginning of the second Torah portion. And God spoke to Moshe, saying, this should be the law of the Metzorah. That's the name of the parsha. On the day of his cleansing, he should be brought to the Kohen. The Kohen should leave the camp to see the afflicted person and be whole. The legion of Tazria has healed in the afflicted person. So the Torah opens up with the healing of the Metzorah. Why would the name of the portion be Metzorah? Bringing out the negative aspect rather than the positive aspect. And likewise, in the first Torah portion, it speaks about a positive thing, Tasria, conceiving, conception, giving birth, and yet it's speaking about the ailments and the isolation, the opposite of life. That's our questions. Clear and simple. Any question on the question? Okay. So before we answer, let us go to a very important topic, the idea of punishment. We have all, been raised by parents, gone to school, where I'm sure we had some kind of interaction with punishment, right? So we definitely have a view about it, and probably not the best one. So let's understand. Tsaras is a supernatural punishment. And for what? Abusive speech, slanderous, gossip, whatever it might be, right? That's what it is. Now let's understand, historically, how most people and societies look at the concept of reward and punishment, right? So reward, of course, is an incentive, and the punishment would be the deterrent. That's the basic way most people would see things. Some might see it as, to put in other terms, fair justice. Others might see it merely as a consequence of somebody's behavior. And others, of course, we might see it on the other extreme, that it's a deserved vengeance, right? They got what they deserve. How does the Torah look at punishment? So, some of you might already know. Give it to me in one word. Not in two. One word. How does the Torah look at punishment in one word?
Cleansing.
Ahuva. That was not a home run. That was a grand slam.
What about consequences?
No, that's not how it looks at it. That might be perception, but that's not how Torah looks at it. It looks at it as cleansing. Let's understand. What happens when you do a sin? What do you produce? Give me one word. One word. What do you produce? Someone wants to chat and tell me? You can chat if you can't speak for whatever reason.
Purity?
No. You do a sin. You don't create, you create purity.
Yeah, pure.
No, when you do a sin, what do you create? One word.
Avera, I don't know.
That is sin.
That is sin. Okay.
That is sin. Avera means Transgression. Ahuva, what do you create?
I'm just guessing. Opportunity?
I won't argue that, but that's not, that's not the definitive thing you create. You create klipa.
Ooh.
Klipa, right? A shell. You're covering over on the divinity, right? And that klipa is a divine energy. And that klipa now cleaves to you. It's like, a nice white shirt, and then you get a stain on it. So what is it punishing now to go give it to the cleaners? No, it's the cleansing process. It's necessary because you've covered over on the color you want to have there. You don't want to have the red wine stain on your white shirt. So everybody, can see, oh, this guy, at our Pesach Seder, there has to be, don't ask me why. Well, it's pretty simple. But there has to be at least one person that spills over their cup of wine. Not necessarily gets on their shirt, but it gets all over the table. Has to be. So we had it twice, and not once, right? Now, what is that? When you spill something, you're taking something, and you're taking that energy, and you're wasting it, especially if you did it deliberately, right? That's called taking divine energy and putting into klipa. You stained your beautiful white shirt and it needs to be laundered. And in that laundering process, that's the consequence that you had mentioned, Livsha, that is necessary to be done, is that process for the going through the boiling hot water and the scrubbing that's necessary to get out the stain? Or is it in order that you emerge with a clean, fresh shirt? Of course, you're not going through that process for the sake of the process. Process is necessary because you want the end result is to have a clean shirt. So the same thing is punishment is necessary in order that you take the klipa that has stained our soul, and now it needs to be cleansed from it. That's punishment, right? Make sense? Not a new idea. We've learned this before. Right? Let's see the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah. He says, punishment and judgment from the realm of justice are, in fact, a form of healing for the sinner. This is consistent with the rabbinic dictum. It is better to be punished so that you can enter the world to come and receive our reward. All of our suffering is made worthwhile by this. It follows that the ultimate purpose of punishment is kindness rather than revenge, God forbid. Sorry, someone's at the front door. Hello? Sure. Okay. I'm teaching in my office, so you'll let people in. You'll stay there, okay? And just lock the door, okay? Come on in. This is true of all punishments in the Torah. Though they derive from a place of divine discipline, they are nevertheless interlaced with kindness, for punishment cleanses the sinner's soul. Now, that's all of Torah's punishment, but Tzaras really stands out in this respect. Most punishments are not self-evident. You can't discern, the spiritual grime on your soul and now the effective cleansing process that the person is going through, although that is the fact. Therefore, what we might see them as punitive, or at least, a consequence of your bad behavior, right? But in fact, it's not that way. But when it comes to tzaras, we readily see the cleansing process. Because what is the consequence of tzaras? Isolation. After the kohen seeing the blemish, the ailment on the skin, the Metzorah has to be quarantined for 17 to 13 days. As the verse says in this week's parsha, so long as the lesions are upon him, the Metzorah is ritually impure. He is impure, he must remain isolated. His dwelling shall be outside of the camp. Now, isolation is not unusual for ritual impurity, but this is a very absolute and total isolation. That is unique. And as Rashi notes, that the Metzorah is sent out from all of the three encampments. Michutz l'machne, chutz l'sholish machnes, outside the camp, outside the three camps. In the desert, the Jews were divided into three camps. The inner camp was the sanctuary, Mishkan. Machne Shechina was called. It's called Machne Shechina. Machne means encampment of the divine presence. Then it was Machne Levia, where the Levites were. Kohanim on the inside, the Levites surrounding them from the outside. Then you had Machne Yehuda, Jewish encampment. Or actually it was Machne Israel back then. Not Machne Yehuda, sorry. Machne Israel. That was the encampment of the Israelites. So when it came to the Metzorah, you were sent away from all three encampments. If you had some kind of other impurity, then you couldn't go into the holy encampment, right? That's what we're learning in the Torah portions, the last three Torah portions, speaking about, if you had impurity, that you can't go into the temple and you can't bring your offering in a state of impurity. But that's only from the inner encampment. Here, you're sent away from all three encampments. As the Talmud, tells us, why is the Metzorah different in that he must remain isolated? His dwelling shall be outside of the camp. His gossip created divisions between couples and friends. Torah therefore decrees, remain isolated. So it's not just that the punishment fits the crime. That would be purely punitive. But the consequence also heals the Metzorah from the spiritual malady that their sin brought upon them. The Metzorah was gossiping, was slandering, sowing division and discord amongst people. So appropriately, the best way to heal from a very harmful nature is to go the other way, be isolated from society, right? Unable to gossip and to slander with anyone, as the Rambam states in Mishnah Torah, which we're coming to finish, by the way, for a second time. Next week will be the seal conclusion. He is isolated and is made known that he must remain alone, so that he will not be involved in the wicked talk of mockery and of slander. So imagine you have, a beer problem, right? Not that you're an addict, but whatever. You have a beer problem. So, and you want to deal with it. You don't want to have that problem. You don't want to continue with the habit. So what do? You punish yourself. How? Not punitively, but you stay away from the bars. Don't go down that street where the bar is that you like to go to. Still go down the street even. If you won't go down the street, you won't go into the bar, you won't drink. You do that for a while, what will happen? You'll form a new habit, hopefully. Now, of course, this all is when you deliberately want to do this and you're highly intentional, right? But if you're highly intentional about this, then you can help yourself to create a new habit, and then you'll be able to go and, meet people again in a social setting and not be, pushing that button that might lead you to be a social beer drinker or wine drinker, or whatever it is. get the idea. So what you're doing over here is you're creating boundaries. The boundaries are the healing. That's the healing by creating the boundaries. So Torah setting boundaries for the Metzorah. You can't be amongst people. Just like the beer drinker, the wine drinker that doesn't go down that street where the bar is. That creating of the boundary is part and parcel of the healing. So it's not just a negative thing that, oh, I can't, it's a punishment. I can't go down the street. No, it's not a punishment. It's healing. It's a positive thing. See the entire experience as part of the concept here of bringing new life to you. You're turning the corner, starting over. In the words of the Rebbe in this week's Sikha. This is why the Torah portion is named Tazria, conception. Conception is the beginning of birth and the new life, similar to planting a seed to initiate new growth. This captures the intent of the lesions in this Torah portion, the lesions in the isolation that follows, in which the Metzorah is alone, and it is made known that he is alone, are not meant to punish and deprive. Rather, they are the steps and the methods to rectify and thus heal the Metzorah. They help him to enter a new life with no inappropriate or evil speech. Wow, beautiful. The Metzorah abuses his or her power of speech. The subsequent sequence is isolation and then purification. This all gives new life. So therefore, the name of the parsha is called Tazria because it wants to teach us a lesson. This is not punitive punishment. This is not the consequence of your bad behavior. This is what happens. No. Recognize by doing this, this is enabling you through what the lesions that you have, the ailment that you have. Therefore, bringing the isolation upon you is in order to cleanse you and to give you birth of a new life. Okay. Is that clear? It's a beautiful, powerful idea. But let's not stop there. Let's continue. Let's go to the second Torah portion, Metzorah. So then why would the second portion called be Metzorah, which connotes the negativity of the individual? When here in this process, we're speaking about the purification of the individual. So based on what we just learned, the Metzorah's impure stage and the purification are not two opposites, right? They're not two. That's really important. It's not two opposite things. They are one single continuum. There's no negative punishment. All there is one long, compassionate process of rehabilitation. It begins with the skin disease that therefore leads to isolation. All of that is healing. And finally, the purification and the reintegration into society as a new person. It's one long healing process. And in the words of the Rebbe, in this week's Sikha, Rebbe says, this also explains why the second Torah portion is called Metzorah, despite the fact that it discusses the Metzorah's state of purification. rather than his previous impure state. This underscores the fact that the Metzorah's healing and purification delineated in this Torah portion are not a new development achieved by the methods and the offering described in this portion. Rather, they are linked to and caused by the subject discussed in the previous portion. Another way of putting it, the steps outlined in this Torah portion that render the Metzorah factually pure merely draw out and reveal what the ailment accomplished. The spiritual healing, which was the purpose of the ailment, was already accomplished by the lesions in the quarantine. And the calling the Metzorah in the second Torah portion is connecting it to the previous Torah portion. It's not there's one thing and another thing. No, it's all one thing. The Metzorah that we're talking about over here in the purification process is the one from the previous portion, right? That through the ailment and the quarantine was already the beginning process of healing, the cleansing. Therefore, the name of the Torah portion is not the one on the day of his purification, because that would have implied that the purification was achieved at this point. Rather, it's called Metzorah to underscore that the purification begins with and emerges from the ailment. Wow. This is extremely powerful. So here, the Rebbe is giving us that we should reframe the Metzorah's challenge. It's not punitive. The intent is not to make the Metzorah suffer. Rather, it's a healing of the Metzorah. Just think for a moment, folks, in our personal lives. We all go through challenges. We go through a rough patch. We all go through sometimes excruciating, painful moments, experiences in our lives. Sometimes we feel it's punitive. We're being punished. And that's part of the problem, is because we feel that it's a punishment. Therefore, we don't sense healing. Here, the Torah portion, as the Rebbe is explaining to us, is telling us, in that moment, you've got the lesion on your skin. The lesion is on your skin. The ailment is there. And as a result of it, when the Kohen said, oh, you've got to be isolated, right? You've got to be isolated. So instead of thinking that this is a punishment that God has sent to me, so with the Metzorah, it's so much more easier because, of course, you understand, Torah is telling you all of this. But when other things in our lives happen to us, if we reframe it into this context, and we know that this is not God punishing me for something I did wrong, but in this moment giving me the disease so I could wake up and know that I got to deal with something here. And maybe I'm not strong enough on my own to create the proper boundaries. So Torah tells me, sorry, isolation. So when I can see it that way, that it is merely a cleansing, person hurt my feelings, a loved one said something to me that was nasty, it's hurtful, I feel the pain. Why did God give me such a person in my life that just hurts me? A parent, child. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about abuse. It is, that sometimes you need to separate yourself, and remove yourself from such a person. But just, enough already, right? If we could say to us, this is healing for me. Let me find how this is going to bring me healing. Oh my gosh. Isn't that moment called rebirth? That moment. That's why the name of the parsha is Tazria. So the second part that's called Metzorah isn't it's called Metzorah because yeah, it's that same Metzorah that has rebirth. The act of purification is just a continuum of what happened before. If you would have called it the day of your healing, oh, so now I'm healed. Once I get out of incarceration, once I get out of in the face of this person who is just making life, just seeing the negative in me. Now, by the way, it could be that person is doing something not nice. It's true, but the fact that you are the butt of it, right, is divinely orchestrated, and God is giving that to you for a reason. So if you know that it's meant to be healing, so you're going to find the healing in it. If you're going to only believe that it is a punishment, then you're going to feel the punishment in it. And maybe you might even say it's a deserved punishment because, I did such and such. But that's also missing the point. It's not a punishment. It is healing. But we need to be highly intentional for that, very deliberate to recognize that, or to choose to recognize that. You choose whatever you want. Most of us don't choose at all. We just, shoot from the hip. But if we take a pause and think for a moment, meant for me to be healing. Okay. Wow. Just saying that to yourself and then is like, it's a total game changer. Fine. Thank you for all being here so I could talk to myself. Was beautiful.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Because we all need this message. I need it, you need it, because we all need it. Right? Okay. Let's take this a step further now. Let's tie this in and bring out more. Even though this was Dayenu, you could say, well, if I just live with this, Dayenu, what a different life I will be living. But, there's more stanzas to the Dayenu, right? So let's continue. So we've learned about the Metzorah in a very personal way. But let us bring this now to our opening remarks about Mashiach. Now we all know, we're all waiting for that time, a time of peace, abundance, spiritual awareness, complete sense of connectivity that we will have. God being truly, clearly visible, not in a physical way, but the presence of God will be real to us. Sounds great. But when we look at our personal lives, maybe not now, because now we got our teachings. But if we look at the world around us, come on, a lot of troubles, a lot of tension, wars, violence, theft, abuse, immorality, a lot of trauma, illnesses. Mashiach. I don't smell it. Seems a distant hope. But that's because we're making the same mistake as we made previously with the ailing things in our lives. The current era and Mashiach are not two separate stages. Tazria and Metzorah are not two separate stages in life. Incarceration, freedom, right? Pain and healing. Rather, they're a single continuum. So it's not like, as we gave the metaphor earlier, the flour and the oil are in the store and I have to buy it and I have to now put it together. Well, those are two different chapters. It's in the store. I got to go and buy it, and now I got to go bake the cake. No, cake's in your oven right now as we speak. It's not ready for consumption yet. It's getting there, getting closer and closer. It's a long process, right? What was the process of the Metzorah? Well, for the coming Mashiach, it's also a process. Actually, a longer one than the Metzorah, because it started on the first day of creation. As the verse says in Genesis, and the earth was astonishing empty. This is the second verse of the Torah, right? And the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. What does it mean hovering over the face of the water? So the Midrash says that this is the Spirit of God was hovering. This is the Spirit of Mashiach. So here, before light was even created, you know what was created? Spirit of Mashiach. Before the first thing of creation, already in the darkness is Mashiach. What does that first of all tell us, folks? What does it tell us? The whole idea of Mashiach is to transform the darkness into light, to rehabilitate. That change had to be started from the very first beginning, before Vahi, or even that there is come any light. There's already the Spirit of Mashiach, and that we need to transform the darkness into light. We need to rehabilitate the world. So first of all, that's from the very beginning, the whole point, which means the Mashiach isn't far away. It means his spirit and energy is the driving force behind all of creation, which all of creation is only to transform darkness into light. And the ultimate light of Mashiach. Now, of course, we do that, every time we do a mitzvah like we're learning now. We're transforming the darkness of our animal soul that maybe you'd rather be enjoying on Netflix or being, eating dinner or whatever, right? And you're transforming the desire that you have there. And this is what we're accomplishing. And this is what the Alter Rebbe explains. The whole purpose of creation, which is analogous, interestingly enough, to a fetus in the womb. Let's look at the Alter Rebbe in Torah, or the exile can be compared to a fetus. The redemption that we will soon experience may be compared to birth. As the passage states, Tzion prevailed and gave birth to her sons, from Isaiah. When Jews are in trouble, God forbid, it is like the children have reached the birth stage, but lack the strength to give birth. Similarly, the sufferings we experience just prior to redemption can be compared to the birth pangs, as the passage states, pangs of childbirth assail you. A fetus has all its limbs, head, eyes, ears. However, they don't function. The brain can't think, the eyes can't see, the ears can't hear. Although it eats from the mother's food, the food doesn't enter through the mouth, but rather directly into the stomach through the umbilical cord. The body is completely developed, as is readily visible during the final month of pregnancy. It even has lungs, however, it doesn't breathe until it enters the world. This is the perfect analogy for the Jewish people before the Messianic era, a time when God withdraws to the celestial realm. This means that God withdraws his revealed presence from the lower realm to the extent that it appears as if the world exists without God. Wow. The absolute perfection that we'll achieve in the Messianic era is the birth and the revelation of God's light in the hidden depths of our hearts. So in the womb, the baby has no awareness of the outside world. Same thing is, we could be in exile, and most people are, save a few like you that are here tonight, that we are blind to the fact that the world is a world that's evolving. But we are evolving because the fetus evolves. In other words, we are having eyes and ears and everything that is necessary. And then all of a sudden, even though we're unaware, poof, there it comes. But it's already been all developed. The fetus is all there ready to see and hear. Even though in the fetus it seems distant. So even though right now with my eyes, I don't really see. So because I have a Rebbe and he teaches me how to see, so I can see a little bit. But really we're blinded. Do we see everything in our lives as an evolution towards Mashiach? But in fact it is. In fact it is. But it's concealed from us. And this is what the Rebbe says in this week's Sicha. Very powerful. Notwithstanding the great spiritual darkness of our times, we must know that the spirit of Mashiach is already present. As our sages of blessed memory taught, Mashiach was born the moment the temple was destroyed. However, it is up to us to reveal him. This is powerful. So the difference between the fetus and you and I is that we have emunah. We have faith. We have faith, and when the Rebbe tells us, and Moses tells us in the Torah, God tells us that Mashiach is coming. So we trust. We know. Not because our eye sees and our ears hear. The only reason my eye sees and ears hear is because the Rebbe has trained me to try to see things as it helps to bring things forward. So going back on a personal level, and beginning there is where we can really work on ourselves, is all of those experiences that may feel as a suffering moment, that is a great challenge, an annoyance, or it might be worse than that, even traumatic. But if we know now that they're really the pains of pregnancy, they're the symptoms of a developmental growth, that I am developing in the fetus to become eyes that can see and ears that can hear. And all of that is a critical part in my development. Wow. So what's going on? I'm not just reframing the past and the present to bring hope for the future, but it's about reframing the way we think of the present and behave in the present, rather than seeing the present as a necessary evil or a waiting period, right, to get through in order to come to Mashiach. The present is our chance to actively make the world ready for the revelation of Mashiach. As the Rebbe said, remember, to reveal Mashiach, it's up to us. We play that role. How? By the lesions, the ailments in our personal lives that we recognize this is Hashem, healing to me. Same thing. Not just on the micro level, but on the macro level, everything that's happening in the world is really about the pangs of birth. Yes, it can be painful. But when you know that pain is there in order that you're growing, in order that you're evolving. That at any moment it's going to come. And it's going to sprout the time of redemption. So what that means is that the present moment is not a separate reality from the moment thereafter Mashiach. Our work during exile is akin to planting, a necessary step that initiates a sprouting and a growth at the time of redemption. This means that it will occur in the Messianic era is not separate from what occurs today. Rather, it is an outgrowth from the planting that we do today in exile. So we don't practice Judaism because, well, listen, this is the way I was raised and this is what I know, or this is what I've chosen, and it's an obligation. It's true, it's an obligation. Mitzvah means commandment, but mitzvah also means command. It means connection. It means a connection to God that enables us, and God gives us the capability that we connect everything to God in my world and in the world around me, meaning that I have an excitement that I'm able to reshape and mold the world into a redemptive process because I see everything in me redemptive. Therefore, I could see the world around me as being redemptive. Wow. That's just like. So the Rebbe says the lesson we must view our efforts and devotions during the period of exile as planting seeds that will trigger the sprouting of the Messianic era and the divine revelations. We will enjoy them. This means the Messianic era of the future is not separate from today's devotions. Rather, it is a continuation and outcome of our devotion to God today. It's a growth that results from our current efforts. That means in every aspect of our mission, of everything that occurs to us and everything that we do, say, and think, right, is bringing closer to final redemption. The present and the future blended to a single continuum. And hence the two portions, Tasria and Metzorah, are combined. We were reminded that it's a single process. The steps that we take during the period of Tzaras in the first Torah portion are part of the purification of the second. They're not a separate stage 1, stage 2, but they are one idea that come together. As the Rebbe says. This can occur in two ways. We realize that the efforts plant seeds and will result in redemption, but the results seem separate from our efforts. We wait Mashiach imminently and work to hasten his revelation. However, our efforts and his revelation feel like two separate stages. Our efforts and the hastening his revelation. A better approach is to combine the two, as when the Torah portions, Tazria, etc., are combined. This means that we don't just plant seeds by awaiting, anticipating, and working to hasten the revelation of Mashiach. Rather, his coming becomes a part of our efforts as we Metzorah seems a continuum. Mashiach's arrival is the result and therefore the culmination of our efforts. What a beautiful idea. When we realize that, yes, every part of my personal life is redemptive. Not just right now when you're feeling the high, right? Not just right now when you're feeling uplifted because you're learning Torah. That's not a big accomplishment. I mean, it is an accomplishment. And the very fact that you're here, right? That is, because there's many that are not here. But that's not the real accomplishment. The real accomplishment is in the dark moment, when the spirit of Mashiach is hovering over the depths of the darkness. And that there we recognize that that is a redemptive moment. It's healing. When I can bring that into my life personally, and then that will give me the capability of seeing the chaos in the world as being redemptive. Now, that might be a little more difficult to see everything. We need a Rebbe for that, right? But more and more we'll be able to see the redemptive process that is going on in the world around us. And therefore, and most importantly, is because I can have a redemptive process within me personally, and I can therefore affect it on the outside also, not just in me. Every mitzvah that we do, right? And especially the mitzvah of studying Torah, learning Hasidus, and spreading the well springs of Hasidus. As the Baal Shem Tov, when he went up, had Aliyas and Neshama, ascend to the soul, and he went to the chamber of Mashiach above, and he asked me, my master, when are you coming? And he responded, that when you will spread your well springs outward, right? And that's what we do here when we teach, people around the world to bring the message in this class, in our Tanya Rabbi and Tanya learning every day. When we spread that message and bring it to more people, then and recognize that that is bringing the redemption, not only personally, but collectively as a whole. That's a great empowerment, the greatest empowerment. The Alter Rebbe empowered us that we could be a Beinani. The Rebbe empowers us with this teaching over here. It takes it a step further, that we can bring the redemption, that we could change the world for good. Today is the 25th of Nisan. In 3 days will be the 28th of Nisan. 32 years ago, Rebbe said a sicha. It's probably good to play that sicha. And I have done everything that I can. I'm now giving it over to you, that you can bring Mashiach. When we heard that, we were like shocked. Us. The Rebbe will help you. You're the, you're the master. You're the one. And I said, no. And that was 11 months to the day of his stroke. That means I'm not certain, but which then we understood what he was prepping us for, and especially after, 2 years plus after that, when Gimel Tammuz came, that empowering us to know that we're a lot more powerful than we think, beginning with recognizing the redemptive process from within, then we can bring that redemptive process from without. With every mitzvah that we do, that recognition, it's bringing redemption, it's bringing Mashiach. It's a continuum that started from beginning of the light of creation. It's already redemption is already there in the very fabric of creation. And it's in our hands. L'chaim, l'chaim. Good tavoch.
Great, man.
Wow. Powerful. Any questions, any comments? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you shortly. DRC.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very
Take
powerful.
care.
Thank
Have
you,
a
Rabbi.
wonderful week,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Amazing.
Thanks.